You're listening to Wealthy-esque. We are a community of lawyers who believe that true wealth is having control of our time. I'm Ro Thomas, and as a busy wife, mom, and former Big Law associate, I know all too well the tension between the culture of the legal profession and pretty much everything else you want to do in life. That's why each week I'm bringing you the information and tools you need to improve your money mindset and manage your money to create true wealth. Because ultimately, it's not about the money. It's about the freedom and flexibility the money affords. Hey friend, welcome back to the show. I hope you're doing well and having an amazing day so far. Today, we are talking about why lawyers don't know how to manage money and what to do about it. Many people assume that lawyers should have no money trouble. Like a lot of people outside the profession think that all lawyers make multiple six figures and, that we should just have it made because we're rolling in the dough and we've made it, right? And of course, we know that's not the case. But even within the profession, a lot of lawyers also believe that they shouldn't have money troubles. I talk to a lot of lawyers about money, and you might be surprised the number of people I've talked to who say things like, what is wrong with me? Or, they feel so much shame because they haven't figured their money stuff out. They say that they're making good money, so they shouldn't be in whatever financial position they're in. Maybe they're living paycheck to paycheck, or they've got a bunch of credit card debt, or they are struggling to save money or to pay off debt. So basically, most people, lawyers included, believe that lawyers should know how to manage their money. And my question is why? Why do we think that? Like, what makes us think that? Managing money is a skill. It's something you have to learn how to do. It's something you have to practice, just like any other skill. And nobody's looking at lawyers and assuming that all of us just inherently know how to play the piano or how to perform surgery or how to drive an 18-wheeler, right? Like those are skills. They take specific knowledge. And if you haven't learned those skills, you don't know how to do them. The same is true with managing your money. You have to learn how to manage your money and you have to practice that skill. Most lawyers have never learned, and I think there are a few reasons for that. First, many of us come from families that don't know how to manage their money either, right? Like various studies estimate that the majority of Americans, in some cases up to 78%, live paycheck to paycheck. And I don't have numbers for every country in the world, but I've seen similar statistics for Canada, Australia, and the UK. Although, if I remember correctly, those statistics were a little bit lower, but still it was a significant minority of people who are living paycheck to paycheck in those places as well. But the point is, with so many people living paycheck to paycheck in so many countries, it makes sense that lawyers don't know how to manage their money because they often don't receive that finance education at home. And granted, I can't say specifically how many of the people in those studies are the families of lawyers and what the figures were when people who are currently lawyers were kids and all of that. But like, if we're just looking at things generally, a huge swath of the population of society doesn't know how to manage their money. It stands to reason that people who are coming from these families of the majority of people in the case of America or a significant chunk of people in some other countries, if you're coming from those families, you haven't learned how to manage your money either, right? There seem to be a lot of people who don't have financial knowledge, so it makes sense that many lawyers don't receive financial education at home. And even if that's a little bit of a leap from the data that we talked about, I think that makes sense. And beyond that, we didn't learn this in schools. Like even now, only about half of the states in America require or will soon require that high school students take some sort of personal finance education before they're allowed to graduate. And that's pretty new. Like that's pretty recent. It was far fewer when I was in school and when many people who are currently lawyers were in school, right? When many of you were in school. So like we didn't learn it at home. We didn't learn it at school. So that means that we would have had to learn it on our own. But here's the problem with that. Often, it's not until there's a problem that we realize we need help, that we realize that we need that education. Like when you're in law school, for the most part, you're pretty broke. Like some people work their way through school, right? But even then, money is probably still a lot tighter while you're in school than when you graduate and you're practicing full time. So students tend not to spend much because they don't have much. And then once you graduate, you're used to having nothing. So when you finally start making some money, you feel like you should be able to spend it, right? Like, I deserve it. So you start getting a little looser with how you spend because you have more money available. And you might buy things that were once luxuries a lot more often. You might get a nicer place with a higher mortgage or rent payment, or a nicer car with a higher car payment. Maybe you get married, you have kids, and all the expenses that come with those phases of life. And you start shopping at nicer places and going out to eat more often and at nicer restaurants and all that kind of stuff. Not to mention the student loan payments, right? So then your income starts getting eaten up with all these different expenses. And then an emergency comes up and you don't have the cash to handle it. So you figure, I'll just put it on a credit card and I'll pay it off. But then you don't get around to paying it off. And then another unexpected expense pops up. And then that goes on the card too. And maybe there's something that you want to buy right now, but you don't have the cash, but you can finance it for like 60 days with no interest. But then 60 days comes and goes and you get hit with the interest on the whole balance, right? And the next thing you know, even though you're making more, your income is stretched in so many different directions, and you're stressed and you're anxious about your money, and you never feel like you have any left for yourself, let alone for paying off debt or saving. Like, is this sounding familiar to you at all? Because this is the kind of situation that a lot of my clients are in when we first start working together. And it's really, really common because we don't get that education and we don't seek the education ourselves, right? But it doesn't have to be that way. So here is what you do. Number one, acknowledge that being a lawyer doesn't mean that you know how to do everything. Like, you're not a superhero, you are a human. You have to learn how to do the things that you don't already know how to do. Number two, seek out knowledge on managing your money better. There are so many books and blogs and podcasts and videos and all kinds of resources. Use them. Learn more about money. Learn how to manage it. And then here's the key. Number three, implement the knowledge you learn. It's not enough to just know it, right? You have to use it. You have to actually take action on the things that you learn if you're going to get some results. And a lot of times we get stuck on step two. Like, we learn the knowledge, we listen to the podcast, we read the books, and we feel really good about that. Like, we feel like we've done something, but you haven't when you haven't implemented it. Like, until you actually take the advice that's in those resources that you're reading, that you're listening to, you don't get the results that you're looking for. So you have to implement. And sometimes we get stuck where it's like, okay, I know the things that I need to be doing, but I just can't bring myself to do them. So sometimes you need some accountability or some guidance to implement. So if that's the case, hire a coach, get into a class or a program or something like that to help you. If you want to work with me, enrollment for my 6-month group coaching program, the Wealthy Yes Group, is opening on June 17th. It is exclusively created for lawyers who want to get out of debt and manage their money better. So head to rothomas.com/coaching for more information and to sign up for the wait list. But all that to say, you can't just expect that you'll magically know how to manage your money if you've never learned. Managing your money is a skill, and you just have to take action to learn it and then implement the things that you learn to manage your money better. All right? So that is it for this week's episode. As we close out, friend, I pray that you take the information you learn here, apply it in your life, and open up to the realization that wealth is available to you. As you do that consistently, week after week, you'll continue to take steps to regain control of your time, build wealth, and live the life of freedom and choice you deserve. Talk to you later.